When you have thousands of water samples that all look identical, you have to have a system to organize them. And any system of sample organization starts with good labels. So in this lesson, we'll talk about sample labeling and also how to make printed labels using mail merge. I have always preferred pre-labeling sample bottles before I head out to the field because field time is expensive. It's always burning hot or freezing cold or gale force winds, or you just stubbed your toe or pinched your finger. Labels are cheap, bottles are cheap. A missed or missing sample is not cheap. The labels need to be smear-proof, obviously, because the labels may get wet. I have in the past used clear packing tape over the labels as extra protection. I really like this method, but my lab manager does not because they're harder to get off when you reuse the bottles. I also prefer printed labels because they tend to be much more legible. Printed labels can also be structured consistently across projects and provide consistency regardless of who is collecting the sample, because other people other than you will need to be able to interpret the label. There is a lot of possible information you could potentially include on a label, and this is best to discuss with your lab PI or principal investigator. Details like sampling location, day and time, and the person who collected the sample are the minimum to include on any label. In addition to that, I like to start with the project name, especially if you'll be working with lab staff who may need to know where to bill the analysis or what project to bill the analysis to. We often do specialty tests or short-term experiments at sites where we also have long-term monitoring going. So to signify that, I like to include the experiment name in those cases. For example, Smith Bioreactor Tracer Test. Speaking of our long-term monitoring sites, it's been useful to have a unique sample identifier, like a consecutive number string, for each sample collected at a specific sampling location, in addition to the sample date and time. That unique identifier is pretty useful. Lastly, I like to include the analyte on the label so the lab manager is sure to know what our intention is for that sample in terms of analysis. It's also useful to include if that specific sample has been or will be acidified if it's a long-term storage bottle. You can see this as a lot of potential information to fit on a small label, meaning printing the label is a good option. So let's jump over to Microsoft Excel and Word to talk about using mail merge to easily create and print sample labels. Welcome over to Excel, where I have kind of a starter template made to help us walk through how to do mail merge, the mail merge process to print labels for our samples. We start with just basically a spreadsheet of information. You see my headers here: project name, researcher, this is person who collected the sample, location where the sample was collected, sample site, sample number, this would be the unique identifier for the sample, the analysis that I'm going to do on my samples, and the preservation. So for example, in this one template, all my samples, I know I'm creating samples for a project called INREC Bioreactor Project. I know that at a location called the Ag Engineering Farm, that's in Urbana, Illinois, I know that I'm the one who's going to be collecting these samples. So I would put my name, and I would drag that information down. You have to create this spreadsheet, and then we'll talk about how it gets transformed over onto the labels. My sample sites, I have one bioreactor at the Ag Engineering Farm. I sample inlet and outlet, so I'm going to copy these down, inlet and outlet. Okay, and then sample number. I like to have unique identifiers here, so I do an apostrophe and then 001. Okay, that apostrophe tells Excel to keep the zeros in there. For example, if I didn't have the apostrophe, delete that, and if I just did 001, Excel would get rid of the zeros. But I like to have the consistent format on all the samples, so apostrophe 001, and then I can click and drag this down, and it recognizes as a number that needs to be dragged. So I have samples 1 through 14 at the Ag Engineering Farm. And then I know as part of the same project, I'm going to have farm staff, Marty Johnson at the Monmouth Research Farm. I'm going to have him collect a number of samples for me. Inlet 1, outlet, inlet 2, outlet 1, outlet 2. So we have all of these samples going on. And I want to provide him a batch of labels
so that he has labeled bottles ready to go for him. And these are maybe sample, again, 001, and then I'm going to drag this down. Okay, and let's center that. I'm going to drag his name down by double-clicking on that little square, Monmouth Research Farm. So I just double-clicked on that little square at the bottom of that to get those names to autofill. Now here's another trick with Excel. Excel likes to be very smart when you click autofill. So in my preservation column, all these samples will be treated the same, and we're going to filter them and then acidify them with sulfuric acid. So when I double-click this little square to have that autofill all the way down, you see what Excel has done. It goes from H2SO4, H2SO5, H2SO6, and this is a common mistake that I see in Excel when we're just trying to click and drag down. Excel is very smart, thinks it's very smart, and so it autofills the number even when you don't want it to. So I'm just going to control copy that top one and control paste so it doesn't do the autofill for me. Okay, so I'm going to save this. This is my template for what I want to be populated in to all my sample labels. So I save this and I'm going to close it. And now I'm going to open Word and go up here to a little tab called Mailings. So it's the Mailings tab right here at the top, and I'm going to start my mail merge. Start mail merge. Okay, and I click Labels. I want to print labels. And Word takes a minute to think about how it's going to do it. And then you need to know on this step the kind of label that you have. So when you buy labels, they come in a box, and you see just label paper like this. And the box that you buy or the package that you buy always has a number on it. These happen to be Avery brand labels number 5160. So 5160 is the number that I'm looking for. So you need to know that information. We go to Avery, and I want Avery US letter size, and then I just need to find my number. So that's how Word knows. So I said 5160. This is how Word knows to create the right template. And here we go. 5160 easy peel address labels, which in fact is what my box says. So I know I'm good to go. So, okay. And what you'll notice about Word is that it then creates these little tab sections, which matches exactly with the labels. And then looking at the side ruler over here, you see these little sections have appeared, and that matches the labels that I'm making. So next we go to select recipients, and this isn't a recipient, this is really the data that you're going to populate the labels. I want to use an existing list, and I saved my Excel file on the desktop, mail merge example, so I open that, come back. So I open this, and I click the right sheet that I want it to access. Okay. So now I see just a template of blank labels. Next step is to insert the merge field. I want to add basically all of these: project name, researcher, location. You'll notice these that I'm adding were all the headers for my Excel file. Analysis and then preservation. Okay. And when I select these, you see they kind of come up as gray. That means that they're fields. It's like if you use a reference citation manager, the information shows up in a field. This just means there's a little bit happening behind the scenes other than just the text that you see. So then I can format my label however I want. So I click out, and I kind of separate my boxes. Notice that if it goes too far down, then it goes off the label. So what I want to do is come over to Home. I can do formatting however I want. So say I want a little smaller font. I want font size 8. Maybe I want these all centered. And then one thing, I'm going to pre-label my bottles, but I'm not going to predate them. for example, the bottles that I'm going to give to Marty Johnson at Monmouth, he's going to just save those and write the date on as soon as he collects the sample. So he has sample bottles in reserve. So I'm going to put date and time. Okay, so you can also add information in. I'm going to add an underline for him to add that information in. I also don't like that it's spaced out so weird, so I'm going to just right click, go to paragraph, decrease my line spacing. Okay, so I think you can see you can format this however you want. I know that I'm going to need some room for Marty to write in the sample time, so I'm going to make that font size a little bigger. And then let's go back and see how it's going to look. So you have all these options now under the Mailings tab. I want to update all labels, so I click this, and it populates all of the labels. And this is what's exactly going to print out. I want to preview my results, so clicking preview results talks directly to that Excel workbook, and so you can see INREC Bioreactor Project, L. Christensen. I don't like that that's too close together. L. Christensen Ag Engineering Farm. So this is the name of the person collecting the sample location, the date and time that we collected the sample, and then the location of the sample identifier. I actually don't like how this one looks, so I'm going to change some things. But this is just formatting. I think you can see that you can change the formatting around, and then you can hit update labels again, and you see the other labels all update. So what you'll notice is that it says inlet 001, 002, 003, 004, and then we skip down to where we were switching over to Marty Johnson in the spreadsheet, and you see it just populates based on that spreadsheet. Okay. You can also type in manual information without talking directly to that spreadsheet. So there's a lot of flexibility to create exactly custom labels to suit your application. And then once we're done, I'm going to update my labels again, make sure everything's ready. Preview, that toggles the preview mode off. That's my preview mode on. Then you just go to finish and merge, and you want to print them. So make sure your printer labels are in the printer, and then you're ready to go.